Thank you for coming. I'm Captain Lane. I'm a Brigade Nurse Counselor, so what that means is I meet with nursing cadets who are in ROTC once a semester and just make sure that they're on track to graduate on time. So Ladora, your peer here, is already enrolled in the Western Michigan University ROTC program, and so if you have any questions specific to this program, please talk to her and or Mr. Clayton here, okay? Most of what I am going to brief as far as ROTC goes is more geared towards freshmen and sophomores. However, there are still options for those of you who are in your junior or senior year. So I currently am stationed down at Fort Knox, Kentucky, so about 6 hours south of here, and get to visit Michigan twice a year, which is quite nice. It's really nice up here. So, all right. So it's going to be pretty quick. Little information brief, but want to give you guys an introduction to what ROTC is, what Army nursing is. I am an active duty Army nurse, so I have been in your seats in terms of like going through nursing school, studying for the NCLEX. So I know what that entails. So first things first, this is me. This is me when I'm not in uniform, okay? I like to show these pictures because a lot of questions I get asked are like, how do you have a family? What's your personal life like in the military? How do you have that work-life balance? And you absolutely can. So I am married, I've got a spouse, I've got a daughter, and they travel whenever I move. They've come with me on some of these trips. And so you can have a family and be in the Army too. So I just kind of preface it with that to kind of personalize this brief a little bit. And then there's the Army side of things. So outside of my nuclear family, right, my husband and my daughter, I also have this huge Army family that I've gained over the last decade of experience in the Army. And so as an Army nurse, you can do clinical roles. So that's our main focus, right, is taking care of patients. And our patient population includes current serving members of the military and their families, as well as veterans and retirees. Okay, and so some of these pictures show like the clinical side of things, doing out in the field, getting some clinical hands-on patient experience, but then also some leadership. So this is me fresh off of maternity leave, and then some of my lieutenants who had just graduated from an expert field medical badge competition. Army courses, hanging out with Army friends. So you develop this network in this community, which is just something very unique in this field, no matter where you move to, how often you move. So ROTC, like I said, mainly focused for freshmen and sophomores because there are requirements in ROTC that you have to meet in order to graduate and commission through ROTC. However, for juniors and seniors, there are opportunities to what's called direct commission. So once you graduate with your bachelor's and you have a minimum of 6 months experience working on the floor, you're able to apply to direct commission into the Army. And commission means you're going to be an officer. So you're not going through a recruiter to enlist and go to basic training. You will be an officer, and by default of that rank, a leader. So I'm going to talk about ROTC real quick. So in ROTC, and this is probably, if you're in your first year kind of nursing school, might still apply to you guys here. But invaluable leadership skills to prepare you for the future. So as I said, in the Army as an officer, you are a leader by default. And so the skills that you learn within ROTC help develop you to make those difficult calls within nursing. So whether that is in regards to a patient, in regards to a staff member, a peer, a subordinate, etc. There are scholarship opportunities, and Western Michigan University is, they are required to commission nurses through their program. We have a separate mission. And so they have campus-based scholarships available as well. And those scholarships can either cover the tuition or room and board. Once you contract, so you've signed your contract that yes, I'm going to complete this program and commission, there's also a monthly stipend, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Clayton, but is $440 a month?
$420.
$420, sorry, $20 less. $420. And then there's also clinical fee reimbursement for things like stethoscopes and scrubs and the things that you need to be successful in your clinical programs. And that's a one-time payment of $650. Okay. Between junior and senior year of nursing school, there is a 4-week internship and during the summer at an Army hospital. And so that allows you to gain 4 weeks more clinical experience that is paid for by the Army, your airfare there, your lodging. You get paid a little bit of a stipend while you're there as well, all paid for. Typically about 20 different hospitals throughout the United States, and then one in Germany and one in Hawaii are typically the sites.
And Western will take those clinical hours and put those towards our clinical requirements or university.
Yeah, so not all programs are alike. Western Michigan does allow credit for that 4-week experience, which is huge. Generally, you gain about 150 clinical hours during that, minimum 120, but most students get more clinical hours than that while they're there. And we'll talk more about that program here in a second. And then additionally, the big one, NCLEX prep course up to $500 can be paid for, as well as first-time exam fees. Okay, so all great advantages to ROTC specifically. So nurse summer training program, like I said, it's a 4-week internship, preceptorship at a Army hospital. These are like 12, 13 years ago when I went. I got to go to Hawaii and spend a month hanging out in Hawaii and learning to be a better nurse. And so you learn your roles and responsibilities of Army nursing. So you've gotten some basic clinical experience. You have to have a med-surg clinical in order to go. But it really builds upon that, as well as, hey, what does Army nursing look like? How does it compare to civilian nursing? How does it differ? You also get potentially a little bit more hands-on experience. Clinical sites for students, sometimes there's risk involved in taking students, right? Army's able to accept just a little bit more risk with our students. And so like when I went, I was able to assist in an intubation in the OR and like do IVs on real people. And some programs are starting to be able to do that, but other ones are still like, hey, you can only do them on mannequins, right? And so you really get hands-on. And then you're also paired up with an active duty Army nurse. And so not only are you learning and building upon your clinical skills, but you are also developing a network of people who are already in the Army and starting to learn more about their day-to-day life. Okay. Yeah. All right, so once you commission in your active duty Army, what does that look like? And what are the advantages of doing that? Hi, ma'am. So initially at your first duty station, there's a 12-week, 3-month orientation. So you're paired up with a nurse to just ensure that you are competent and confident to be able to take your own patient load, right, safely. And so it's pretty much a 3-month transition to practice. Additionally, you'll gain medical surgical nursing experience. So all of our nurses who commission, unless you direct commission in with prior experience and you're able to go right into a specialty, will start out as medical surgical nurses. And after 1 year of gaining experience, you can go to a specialty course. And there's 6 separate specialties outside of medical surgical nursing that we'll get into on the next slide. Additionally, broadening assignments. So not only clinical bedside experience, but also leadership experience. So you'll be a charge nurse probably within the first year of service. And then a head nurse of a medical surgical ward. I was head nurse within 7 years. In the civilian side, if we're going to compare them, you're waiting for somebody to retire or die out of those positions in order for you to kind of move up into those roles. So there's a lot of leadership opportunities. The role I'm in now, I'm not seeing patients on a regular basis. I'm out mentoring and meeting with the new generation of Army nurses. So there's a lot of back and forth to make you a really well-rounded officer. If you do specialize, there are opportunities for incentive pay. So I am a med-surg nurse by trade. I did not specialize. My counterpart who has Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee schools, she's an OR nurse. Same rank, we've been in the same amount of time, but because she specialized, she gets $35,000 more per year than I do. She's smarter than I is. And then long-term health education and training is the Army's medical department's specific graduate program, and we'll go into the different degree options there. So specialties. So these 6 different specialties are what we have. Some people are like, oh, I really like to work with pediatric patients. No matter what specialty you do, you can work with pediatric patients because our patient population, like I said, are serving veterans and their families. So that includes their kids. So from cradle to grave, we see them all. So public health, behavioral health, perioperative, labor and delivery, critical care, and emergency. Those are our 6 dedicated specialties. And they're anywhere from 12 to 16 week programs for those specialties to really get into like deep dive into what it takes to be that type of a nurse. And then here on the right side are the incentive pay options I was talking about. So for a 2-year contract, after you've worked in that specialty for a year and you've taken the examination to be certified in that specialty, you are able to sign up for incentive pays. So 2-year contract, $10,000 annually. So that's a total of $20,000. Up to a 6-year contract, $35,000 per year for the 6 years of that contract. And then finally, this is our graduate program. These are not all of the degrees options that are available, but a good chunk of them for nurses specifically. So anywhere from your MSN to an MHA MBA, all the way up to PhD, everything in between. In addition to that, we also have fellowship opportunities that are available. These are typically 1-year fellowships. So CDC, mostly for public health nurses, Kaiser Permanente, Joint Commission, as well as our core office, so the nurse core office, which is down in San Antonio. All right. In the long-term health education and training program is a dedicated graduate degree. So you apply, you get accepted. Your sole job is to go to school and get that degree. So your graduate education is paid for. You're still getting paid your salary, but you're not working while going to school. So that's huge. And then once you graduate, that is now your new job in the Army. So it's not like in the civilian sector, graduate from a nurse practitioner program, you need experience as a nurse practitioner in order to get a job as a nurse practitioner. You are a nurse practitioner once you graduate. So there's a dedicated utilization tour after you graduate where you're going to apply everything you learned in the graduate program and work in that field. Okay, that was very fast. But that was a broad overview, so now we have plenty of time for questions. So with that, questions, and then here's my contact information. You also have a business card in front of you should you want to reach out. Cell phone's the best. Email is probably second. I don't think the office number works, so don't even try it. But if you have parents who are interested or have questions, I have talked to many parents as well, so more than happy to reach out with them as well. So with that, any questions? In the back, yeah, go ahead.
So where are some areas that you've been stationed at?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started out just south of DC at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Was there for 3 years. I worked on a med-surg floor. And then my 3rd year there, I was the assistant head nurse. So did about 50% administrative, 50% clinical in that role. From there, I moved out to Washington State, Fort Lewis, in Tacoma, Washington. Was there for about 4.5 years. Our typical tours are about 3 years. But was there for 4.5 years because I had my daughter, and I said, hey, can I not move with a newborn? And they were like, sure, you can stay there for an extra year. So out in Washington, I did probably like 3 or 4 different jobs. So I was with a field hospital, which is our deployable unit, but didn't deploy during that time. In that role, I was training like LPNs and medics, so it was more kind of an educational role and making sure that they were keeping their clinical skills up. And then I was an aide to a general officer, so I got to travel all around the Pacific and Asia for a year, basically as personal assistant. And then was a company executive officer, so again, not nursing, kind of showing you that you can do more than just clinical bedside nursing. And in that role, really heavy on like maintenance and supply logistics. We were transitioning our field hospital to the new structure, so getting a whole lot of new medical supplies in. And then I was a head nurse of the med surg ward after that for about a year, a little over a year, where I had about 60 staff under me, managed their schedule, their evaluations, and made sure the floor was running smoothly. And then I moved to Fort Knox, and I've been there since last summer.
So, how often do you move between the?
Yeah, so as an active duty nurse, your first duty station is going to be 2 years, and then from there it's typically about 3 years. Every 3 years you'll move. Give or take some time. Everybody's situation is different, and like I said, when I had my daughter, I was able to ask and request to stay longer to kind of stabilize my family. So there's definitely some wiggle room there, but typically about every 3 years.
And for the clinicals, you said Germany and Miami?
There's probably about 20 total sites throughout the United States. So we've got one in Alaska, Washington, a handful in Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, Kentucky, Louisiana, DC, and then the ones that are like outside the continental United States, Germany and Hawaii. Yep. And then that's just for that internship. We also have hospitals and clinics more in Europe, so to include Italy, Belgium, and then there's a couple clinics in addition in Germany, and then we also have one in South Korea and a clinic in Japan as well.
So do you get to choose, or they just choose for you?
So it's you get to request. You'll rank order, kind of like the duty stations. So for the internship specifically, you'll rank your top 5 out of those 20 or however many are available that year. And then as far as your duty stations go, once you commission, there's usually ones that are options available for you. So your first duty station, because of that 3-month orientation program, there are 13 duty stations that are available. And so pretty much the ones that I listed, Washington, Hawaii, 3 in Texas, Colorado, Kentucky, so southern Kentucky, like Fort Campbell, it's like in between Kentucky and Tennessee, 2 in Georgia, 2 in DC, North Carolina, and Germany. So those would be the first duty station because of that orientation at that 3-month orientation. And then from there, anywhere where they need nurses, which is pretty much any other duty station we have. What type of nursing are you guys interested in? If you know. Med surg. Med surg is great. I mean, I stuck with it for 10 years, so.
How to do labor?
We need labor and delivery nurses, 100%. Yeah, and if that's your calling, then go do it. Even after having my daughter, I was like, no, I couldn't do this.
I work on the trauma floor at Bronson, so.
Okay, absolutely. So with trauma nursing, either ER or ICU, it's the same course. It's so 2 months are in class, and then 2 months you go out to your clinical site. So that's where ICU and ER would split off in the training. But we have what's called the in-route critical care nurse course. So in a deployed setting, essentially think of like flight nursing, but we do more than just on aircraft. So you can also do it via ground, like evacuate patients via like ground as well. But that requires a critical care nurse and typically a medic, and you're the only ones with that patient as you're moving up. So after typically about 2 years as a critical care nurse, you'd be able to go to that training.
Mine is kind of general first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We go to EMT.
Okay, absolutely. Our brigade surgeon down at Fort Knox, she's a nurse practitioner, family nurse practitioner. We have family nurse practitioner, emergency nurse practitioner, and psychiatric currently. Looking at potentially adding acute care, so like critical care. But as of right now, those are the 3 that we have for nurse practitioners.
Maybe psychiatrist.
Absolutely, those, yeah. And we have, just with your BSN as well, the psychiatric mental health nurse as well. And that kind of tracks you to the psychiatric nurse practitioner. Yeah. What about you? Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome. No, we love our mental health nurses, 100%. Any other questions for me, nursing or not, or for Mr. Clayton, or in the back of the room is Colonel Hinterman, who's the professor of military science here at Western Michigan, so they can definitely speak to the program. Yeah.
I just have one more question. So I know we have to go to the advanced camp, and then how does that work if we want to go to the nursing camp?
You do it both. So both in the same summer. So advanced camp for ROTC is kind of your culminating event to show that yes, I've learned what I need to in ROTC. Very tactics heavy, Army heavy, and then after that, we usually front load our nurses in the first half of the summer, and then the second half of the summer is when you would do your NSTP rotation. Yeah, usually about one day in between. So don't make any other plans for the summer between your junior and senior year. But free vacation somewhere. It's not too bad. Yeah.
So you said in one of your tours you were on like a deployable unit.
Mm-hmm.
So is there options to do like stay in the U.S. or deploy, or is it just kind of like if you get deployed, you get deployed?
There are units who deploy more frequently than others, and there are specialties that deploy more frequently than others. So your trauma nurses, so your larger hospitals, think of, you've seen the show MASH? Okay, so think of like that large, basically just a tent city hospital, okay? Those are much more difficult to deploy because we have a lot more equipment and a lot more people. The ones that deploy more frequently are forward resuscitative surgical detachments, and are like the ones who are a little bit closer to like the front lines. Those ones are smaller units, a lot easier to deploy, typically teams of like 20 people as opposed to like 300 people. And so the specialties that are in those are your ICU and your ER nurses. So if you do specialize in those, there are more options, more opportunities to deploy. I've been in for almost a decade and I have yet to deploy even though I've wanted to. So sometimes it's kind of the luck of the draw to what unit you're with. So the unit, when I was in a deployable unit, we were non-deployable at that time because we were getting new equipment in. So we were getting rid of old equipment, getting new equipment in, and so in that process we weren't going to be deploying. It was also COVID, so we kind of were just spread everywhere trying to help out where we could. Did that answer your question? Kind of. So for the seniors in the room, if you are at all interested, please reach out to me. Your best bet would be through an Army medical recruiter. Make sure that it's an Army medical recruiter and not just your any recruiter, because they'd be like, oh, you can enlist and then be, an Army nurse later. So make sure it is an Army Medical Department recruiter if you are interested, so that you can direct commission. Because once you have your bachelor's, pretty much you're good to go. And if it's a bachelor's in nursing, you're going to be a nurse, right? We're not going to let that degree go to waste. So the two things you need, your BSN and an active nursing license. So once you have those and about 6 months of experience, then you would be good to go. If there's other questions. Yeah,
Is it the same with junior?
Yes, so yeah, go ahead.
So, hello. Thank you again for everybody coming. My name is Billy Clayton. I'm a scholarship and enrollment officer for the Army ROTC program here, and I'm here to talk to you guys about next steps. So, the way the ROTC program is calculated or it's formed, it's kind of in two sections. You have the basic course, which is the freshman and sophomore year, and the advanced course, which is the junior senior year. You only need to take the advanced course in order to commission as an Army officer. So you only need 2 years left at Western starting in the fall in order to commission as an Army officer. But in order for you to start the advanced course, you need something that's called basic course credit. So everybody in this room, it's a little too late for you to take the freshman and sophomore class. We understand that. So we do something during the summer called basic camp. It's a 30-day all expenses paid trip down to sunny Fort Knox, Kentucky. But what that is, it's just an opportunity to get you guys in a situation to where we kind of give you all the information that you missed for the first 2 years. So you go down for a 30-day camp, you come back, and you have what's called basic course credit. And you can now start the advanced course in the fall. Nothing that you would be doing with me from now until the fall commits you to military service. You are in 100% an exploratory term right now. You're deciding to see if you can see yourself in this space. So we do things like you can come and visit us on on Thursday afternoons to determine if the ROTC class is something that will fit into your schedule. On Thursdays, we do something called Discovery Day, where you can take our ROTC class in our leadership lab for the day. Our next Discovery Day is March 21st, and that day we're doing a platoon raid. So if you guys come out to Discovery Day on the 21st, we're going to put you in formation with everybody else. You're going to get a dummy rifle like everybody else. You're going to run through the woods, learning how to do a platoon raid. And this is one of the things that as nurses you guys need to understand. What ROTC is, it's the basic information that every officer needs to know. So we're like your basic training. Officers don't go to basic training. The ROTC class is your basic training. So every person, regardless of what job they're doing once they graduate school, gets the same chunk of training. So all nurses get the same training that a person who wants to go infantry gets. It's just what it is. But as long as you graduate with a BSN and you pass the NCLEX, you're guaranteed the job of Army nurse. They will not pull you to be something else. And that's the only guaranteed job that ROTC has to offer. Everybody else has to compete for their jobs. Western is considered a nursing center of excellence because the Bronco Battalion is considered a nursing center of excellence because all 4 schools that are part of the Bronco Battalion has a nursing program. So we know exactly how to work with nurses. We know that you're clinicals. We know what it means to have a nurse in the program. And we're very supportive of you guys. Scholarships are available for 2-year. We have 2-year scholarships that will again cover 100% of your tuition. Or if you already have scholarships and grants, not loans, but scholarships and grants that are helping you cover your cost of tuition, we have something called room and board, or what I like to call the cash option. And it's a $6,000 check every semester. So $6,000 in the fall, $6,000 in the spring, goes into whatever bank account you tell us to put it into, and you can spend it on whatever you want. You don't have to live on campus. You don't have to do any of that stuff. It doesn't go towards room and board. The school doesn't get it. It's your money. So you get that $6,000 every semester, plus the $420 a month living stipend, plus the $600 a semester for books. So there are ways for us to help you with the funding of your education if you have a propensity to serve. If it's too late, if you're so far gone that you don't have enough time left to finish the ROTC program, then I do have a point of contact with another captain nurse at Lansing who is an AMED recruiter. So my card is on the table along with Captain Lane's. You're more than welcome to reach out to me and I can connect you with that AMED recruiter. But for those that still have time left, we would love to have you come check us out to see if the ROTC is something that you would like to do. And then you would go to basic camp this summer. After basic camp, you'd say, okay, yes, let's move forward or not. And that's kind of how it would go. We could do scholarship paperwork now. You can actually have the scholarship waiting for you before you go to basic camp, knowing that if you do come back and decide to go this route, that scholarship would be waiting for you to start with. So those are kind of your next steps. Any questions for me? It was a lot. And so if you want to have this conversation in more of a one-on-one, if you have your own specific scenario that you would like to run past me to see if we can fit, you guys do have my card that's on the table. Please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to talk to you. The cell phone number on there is my work cell, so you can call or text that if you'd like as well. Ma'am, do you have any questions? Ma'am, would you like to say anything? All right, guys, please continue. You're more than welcome to stay here and eat. We're going to turn the stuff off, so if you guys want to come up and ask me a question or come up and ask Captain Lane a question, Cadet Pena, who's already in the program, if you want her to tell you that, she'll tell you the good and the bad. She's not going to lie to you. And then, of course, Colonel Hinterman is in the back as well. If you guys have any questions. Thank you so much for coming today.